What's up? Today we're talking about gaming. We're talking about representation in tabletop gaming. Super excited to be joined by Danielle. We talk about the game that she helped design and work on HerStory for Underdog Games. Really excited to share this episode with you today. Before we hop into the episode, we've been doing some like business insider industry kind of videos, and those have been kind of popular, so we might do some of those again in the future. But let me know what kind of videos you want to hear or you want to see from us in the future. You can leave a comment below. Let us know. We really like to hear from you and know what kind of videos you're looking forward to watching from us. And before we get into the video and our video cast for the week, be sure to subscribe, whether you're on YouTube or listen to us on a podcasting platform. Really appreciate it. It means a lot. So let's get into the episode. All right, welcome to another VideoCast episode of BGE's Tabletop Talk. Today we have Danielle Reynolds on our show. We're talking about her game, HerStory. Super excited to have her on. Let's bring her on. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And Danielle is the lead designer of kids in development. Oh man, I got this wrong. So head of kids game design and development at Underdog Games. And she also does a podcast about game design. So super excited to have her on and share some insights into game design and a little bit about her story. Would you share a little bit more about yourself though?
Sure. So yeah, like you mentioned, I am the head of kids design and development at Underdog Games. So I originally got hired freelance to work on HerStory as one of the co-designers. And I guess they liked me enough to take me on full time. And so yeah, that's what I'm doing there full time now. Loving working there. And then I do have my podcast, Game Design Unboxed, Inspiration Publication, which I actually just recorded my 50th episode last night. So I'm super excited that game is just going to keep continuing to grow, and I'm going to talk to more and more designers. But one thing that I find like very important, and honestly I think is like one of the main reasons I ended up getting hired to like help work on HerStory, is all that I do in my free time volunteer wise is trying to work to add like more diversity in gaming. So I volunteer or I'm on boards or like officers for different nonprofits. And those nonprofits include like Tabletop Gamers or Women in Games International, the Young Inventor Challenge that's hosted by People of Play, Unpub for anyone who's like designing games. And gosh, there's probably quite a few board game broads, of course. Duh. Yeah, and some other, I'm sure, that I also volunteer for. So it's like I spend a lot of time working on games, but I really enjoy it. I live and breathe it.
That's super awesome. I have a question for you about that, but maybe I'll ask in a minute. Because I want to chat about because I remember when we first met, you were doing. You have to forgive me, I don't remember the name of your game, but I remember it was a squirrel themed game.
It was called Nut Stash.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
gonna say Nut Stash, but thought I might have mixed it up with another one.
No, it's a funny title. It's easy to remember for me.
There you go. So it's really cool to see what you've done since then, and now you're working at Underdog Games with HerStory. So I'll come back to my question. Maybe it'll come up later. So
Cool.
could you share a little bit about HerStory and an overview of the game, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about it.
Sure. So I actually have the box behind me in the corner, but also another copy that's like right here. So in HerStory, you are working as writers trying to create a book about amazing women in history. And so the book, it's not a writing game. It's actually a set collection, tableau building with some engine building. And so the cards that you're collecting are these beautifully illustrated cards. So
Oh,
like off to the side, you'll see there's different like kind of research icons, which you're going to be collecting tokens to fulfill these cards. So the idea is once you have the correct tokens you need, you will draft them into like your book is what we're calling it. And once someone hits 8 chapters in a book, it'll initiate the end of the game. But with all these cards, you have different abilities. So like some of them are going to be blank. Some are going to be kind of catch up mechanics if you're not in the lead or you're actually like at the very end. And you will also have endgame scoring. So it's pretty cool. You have a bunch of different abilities. There's also the very straightforward, just like icons that when you have this, it basically works as if you had a token. But what you're doing on your turn is really just one of 3 things. You're either taking a token and the token has 2 to 3 symbols on it, and kind of putting it off to the side of your board, or you are taking one of these beautifully illustrated cards and throwing it into a draft spot. And a draft is like in Splendor, you're reserving it so no one else can like collect that card later on, and you get 2 points immediately added to your board. Or you can turn in the tokens to move either a card from your draft spot or a card from like the central board that looks like a cork board into your book. And so you do that by turning in the tokens. If you have the exact amount of symbols you need, you actually get a 3-point bonus. If you have an additional symbol or two, that's fine. You just get the amount of points that are currently on the card. So like if I were to turn in the correct symbols for Malala, I'd be getting the 10 points that are like right here in the corner.
Okay. That's awesome.
And you'll notice when you start looking through the cards, the higher points in the corner tend to not have any abilities, where there are cards that actually have 0 points, but that's just because like you're essentially now going to have a token that you can optionally use for the rest of the game. So it's like the more powerful the power, the less points you're going to get right away. So it's this nice balance, because when we were playtesting, Nick and I, we were really trying to make it so this game could be entry level, but also fun for like the more hobbyist gamer. Because with the engines, you can like build a really cool strategy, but someone who doesn't play those kinds of games are going to have no clue. They're going to go for like the high pointers and trying to make those exact matches. And we found that, you know, you can actually win both ways. We've had people win both ways. I will say when I play test this game, I tend to lose because I try something different every time. But yeah, so that's basically how you play the game. If you don't like the tokens that are in front of you, we also have a really cool little library card that you flip over or then remove to kind of clear the board of them and put out new options. But it's a really fun game. It's super simple to learn, but it has some like deep strategy, which is why I very much enjoyed working on it. And it's easily my favorite game mechanically that I've helped work on, but also just the content. Because when you build your book at the very end, you're going to combine all these beautiful ladies into a little book. And on the back of each of the cards, you have a little section for her story and then a did you know fact. And if you want to learn even more about them, you can go on our website. But there is 120 cards, so 120 different like biographies about these women that you may or may not have known. Like I actually felt bad because content, their group was working while us, the designers, were working. And so it was at the very end that we combined all of it together. And I was like blown away by, first off, how many women I didn't know about, which I felt bad, but also felt good because it's like, okay, that made it so I knew this game needed to be a thing, because you should know about these amazing women in history and what they did and like what they contributed that now makes my life a lot easier.
That's super cool. I like the facts on the back. And that's, I mean, our previous podcast that you were on was Board Game with Education. And that's kind of like one of our main angles with our brick and mortar store. So that's super cool. Do you have a favorite figure from the game?
I do. So I started getting, I'm not gonna lie, kind of a girl crush a bit, to the point where they actually ended up adding her to the box. So if you look right there, that's Hedy Lamarr. And so she's an actress, but she's also the reason we have like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi now. So intelligent and gorgeous. And she kind of became my favorite, to the point where now people give me gifts with her face on it, which is pretty funny.
That's cool. She's also an actress.
Yeah, she's also an actress.
Because I'm not familiar with her. I know Bluetooth and Wi-Fi.
So, yeah, exactly. I was like, just look her up. But like, honestly, I can't say I have a favorite. That is just one that I like didn't super know about. But the more I like read about her, the more I was like, oh, damn, she's really cool. But all of them did something amazing, or even something that you thought someone else was the first person to do it, but it was really them. And they didn't like get the credit they deserved. So that's been really interesting.
That's cool. So yeah, I guess going with the style and the kind of design of the game, one thing that I really like about probably this game, I haven't played it yet, but Underdog games, is the ease of getting into it versus, or in with how it is great for hobby gamers. I was watching someone play it. I still need to play Trekking Through History too, but I was watching a group play Trekking Through History, and it was a couple content creators. So they've played loads of games, but they were enjoying it for the strategic depth that was available to them in the game.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we've really been trying to push, is kind of that ability to like streamline the gameplay. So, I mean, our rule book, if you take out just like a picture, actually, I can show you right now. So it's like you open up the rules the front of it is like nothing that you really need to read. This page is just literally the layout of what it's going to look like. But the actual rules themselves of playing the game is only really 3 pages. And it's really good at holding your hand. And that's what made me super happy. But like by here, this is just a little thing about, hey, combine it to create yourself a quote unquote book and read out your favorite. So it's content. And the whole last page is about how we decided on the different women who worked on this. We have like a student board, an advisor board, their actual pictures, and then like the credits for the people in like our company or the play testers that either did blind play testing or showed up for a lot of different play tests. So it's like we give a lot of credit in here. And then for even the credit that we couldn't put, you just go on our website and we've got that. We even have this really cool thing that on our website, you can nominate like a woman in your life or that you know of that's doing something amazing. And we'll post their picture and like a little description and a cool frame. But yeah, I feel like I don't know of many games that do this kind of stuff. And so it's really cool to be a part of this project. And like, I in no way take credit for like this whole game. It was 100% a team effort because without the amazing illustrations, it wouldn't feel the same. Without the content, it wouldn't feel the same. Without, of course, like the mechanics and stuff, which allow you to ignore the educational elements. It's just like everything came together so perfectly. And I adore it.
Right. Yeah. So that's always interesting to me, and it's interesting when I talk to like customers or people that see some games in our store, like some Genius game, Cytosis. I
Oh,
tell
I
them,
love
well,
Genius games.
yeah, it's like, well, technically, you don't have to know any of the science to play the game because the
Nope.
game's just a really great game. The mechanics there are there and they work. So what were some like interesting design choices for you as far as like maybe talking to one, like making sure it has that aspect of learning about these historical figures versus like making it still a great game?
Ugh. Um, well, I'll say since it's an engine builder, that means you have to play test the crap out of it because you just never know what combination of powers is going to completely demolish your game. So
Mm,
we were playtesting at least 13 times a week. And what we do at Underdog Games, which I found really cool and different from like some of my other experiences of different games I worked on in the past, is we do split testing. So when I got like hired on, Nick had already built a good chunk of this game, and some of that came also from Emerson initially. And so what we did is we would do split tests. So like he would make a design, I would make a design, we would play test them back to back with play testers. And then we get their opinions of like what they liked, what they didn't like, and try to solve the problems that we had. So like one of the biggest problems I feel like in games in general is just like the runaway leader, the catch-up mechanics, like how do you build that into the game? At one point, so I'm someone when I design, I just throw things at the wall and just like I'll add and then I subtract stuff where I feel like Nick is more of a minimalist than I am. So like at one point, I even tried to take from like Quacksa the little like rat tail idea, except making it like little light bulbs that are like inspiration hit. Like you get to move a little bit
mm,
faster now because
oh,
you're so
okay.
far behind.
Yeah.
But that just like kind of added more rules. And what we were trying to do was like really streamline the rule book and make it as simple as possible to jump into this game. And so like that ended up not working. So what we really tried to do is lean into the card powers, but we didn't want just like if you're like in last place. So we have in last place powers, but we also have when you're not in the lead powers.
Mm,
And depending on the player count, those powers can be very different because like in a two-player game, like the last and the not in the lead are basically the same thing. And so in a two-player game, I actually tend to lean more into those types of powers because it can be really, really fun because sometimes you get to draft like 2 tokens, sometimes you're scoring additional points. Sometimes you're able to like draft 2 things instead of 1 thing at a time, which because you get 2 points when you draft right away, that's like you're gaining points. But it's kind of fun where like you can work your magic and like use those not in the lead cards mixed with end of game scoring cards. So that way, like through the game, it looks like you're far behind and you're kind of getting pulled along by the group because of those cards. But
mm.
at the very end, you do those end game scoring and then whoop, you shoot in front of them. So it's been really cool to see how people use those different types of mechanics, especially because like when you have like the symbol powers, they're 0 or 2 pointers. So they're pretty low scoring. So it's like if you got that mixed with a not in the lead card in the beginning, you can make a really cool engine. So it's just like really playing with those powers is what most of our development process was, is like we just like kept brainstorming. So like during one of my drives when I was driving back from New York City, me and Nick were just on a phone call, just like going back and forth, talking about like what powers would be cool. We also wanted to make sure that every time a power gets played, it doesn't automatically like activate. It's always in the future. We didn't want one of those board games where you read the rules and the rule says like, hey, this is the rule, but then the card like undoes the rule. We're like, no,
Mm,
that's never going to be
right.
the case. Like always it's going to be in the future that this power activates. And so we're really trying to play with like as a player, when you get stuck, like what is it that you want to do? Like what's the most fun? And so it was a really good time of like trying to strip down what powers work, which ones were too powerful, which ones were kind of like stale or lame. Cause I mean, if you have too many of those not in the lead cards, it's really only going to help a few people. So it's like you don't
Mm,
want too many. We also want to have plenty of cards that don't require any reading and just are high pointers for those players that haven't really played a lot before. So trying to find that like perfect balance of how much of each type of ability and like blank card that we needed also just mixed in and balanced with the point values and the symbols. And I'm like, believe me, I am not so great with the math. Like, I am really good at guesstimating, but there's a reason I didn't go into architecture when I was thinking about it in grad school or like in undergrad. But yeah, Nick is very good at balancing those. So I got to like be zany and weird, and he got to calm me down sometimes, or at
that's
least
super
balance it out
cool.
to make it work.
That's super cool. It seems like you both made a good team as far as, and then worked really well with the split play testing.
Oh, yeah. It's really cool because so I was just on a different interview talking about co-design versus solo design and like which is my preference. And
Mm,
I kind of cheated and gave myself like a slight change on what my answer was. But I always said I like solo design, but I like solo design where you have kind of a community or you're just like kind of helped out in a way. So it's like with doing the split testing, you're essentially solo designing against each other, but
mm,
technically together at the same time because
yeah,
you're really pushing and helping each other to build the best product. Because sometimes my idea, like the library cards, can be really good, but sometimes like Nick's idea of like, yeah, we need to ditch the light bulbs, like it's too much.
right.
It really like helps because we're like competitive, but we're working together, and then eventually like morphs into this one game that we're working on together. And so that was like really cool because with solo design, sometimes if you have to work with a teammate, like you push and pull back and forth, but it's like we don't have to have those like arguing moments so much because our play testers are doing it for us. Like
Mm,
a third party is telling us, yeah, this idea was good or this idea wasn't as good. And there were definite times where I like had to push and be like, look, I really feel like this is better. Even though like maybe the company is like, maybe not so much. And then like having the proof of the playtest has been really great. Like we record every playtest that we do. So it's been a
okay.
really interesting experience, like go through helping with her story and then now seeing how that's gonna be with my like new family games that are coming up. So it's been really cool.
That's super cool. So I kind of want to shift gears here
Sure.
and talk about, I guess, like the kind of main idea or main push for the game and kind of what you're doing with other organizations is representation and gaming and what that means to you. What would you say, like, why is that important and what does it mean to you?
Gosh, it first off, it stinks that that is a question. Like, why is it important to have representation? Well,
Mm,
um, I remember I was on a panel earlier this year, and one of my co-panelists told everybody that apparently there is more sheeps on board game boxes than there are women. So that right now is a problem in itself. I'm hoping that statistic has changed with how many games have come out this year, but
I mean, her
yeah,
story
so
helped with that.
yeah, oh my god, we have so many different females' faces. Like, honestly, I look at this box, and so I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, and so, like, looking at this, there are so many different types of women, like ages, ethnicities, like backgrounds, historical periods, locations in the world. Like, there is so much different representation here,
That's
and
cool.
just the nice thing is, looking at this box, I feel like any person could find a piece of themselves in the pictures of these faces. Where when I was growing up, I'm a white girl, and in my area though, we had a really large Hispanic community and Native American community, which is what I grew up with. And then I like kind of moved to a more whitewashed suburb of Chicago for college, which was a weird culture shock going that direction when I was more used to the representation, seeing different types of people. But the problem was when I went into like a Target when I was younger, all I saw were white girl dolls, like the Barbie dolls, and things have definitely changed. And now you see these
Right.
historical Barbie dolls that you can buy. And I think that's amazing. But it's just like, it's sad how long it took to get there to like have it so you could walk down a toy aisle or pick up a board game and see a potential piece of yourself in like the artwork or in the toy that you're holding. And so I know like in gaming, because all the nonprofits I work for is really just like a push to get more people of color, more people that are like under the like gay mafia, the LGBT plus community, or just like females out there, because no offense to the white guys of the world, like you guys are all great, but you're most of like what is designing the games out there. And my company completely recognized that. And actually, our company as a whole is very diverse. It's really awesome. Like, I'm not even the only gay
Wow.
person there. So that's cool. But like, they knew that they wanted to make a game about women. The hardest part was trying to figure out, like, how, because there's not really a mechanic that says this goes with women, where like
Yeah.
a train game, I feel like there's specific mechanics that tend to gravitate towards that theme. So that's what kind of took them a while, and why I eventually got hired onto the project too, because by the time I was hired, they had figured out like we're going to be writers, like creating a book. But they acknowledged that there weren't enough games about women, and I don't want this game to come off as like this is a game that only women can play, because this is a game that everyone should be playing,
Mm.
because it's fun, it's easy to learn, and then you're gonna learn about these amazing women in history that you should have learned about. I got to learn about all the white guys in the world, so I feel like you should learn about a few women.
Right, right. Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah, I
oh,
feel like
that's
representation's
awesome.
important.
It's like, I mean, you kind of hit on it. It's if you have women designing games, you're going to design experiences that connect with women, right? With different
Mhm.
backgrounds, designing different games, you're going to connect with different backgrounds. Um,
Exactly. I mean, there's so many stories out there that we just don't know about because we don't interact with it. I know the more that I've traveled, the more I have like realized there's so many different cultures. There's different ways to say the same word in different places. Like you would never know about these different like factions or like things that people are interested in had someone not like taught you. But it's like if you can't
mhm.
find the money to travel, then one of the next best things is experiencing it through books or through like these games, because like I love passively learning, and there are some pretty cool games that are based out of like historical moments, but a lot of them aren't really created by the right people. I feel like someone who's creating a game about Chinese history maybe shouldn't be a white guy, or
Mm.
maybe they should like add on an additional person. And so like I got added on because they recognize like maybe we shouldn't have guys be the only ones designing this game.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
a smart move. So yeah, I guess like for me as a game store owner, this is kind of my question that I had is wanting to like celebrate diversity, but again, white male.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that. I'm also aware of the fact that most of my customers are males.
Mhm.
We are, I feel like, a bit more diverse than maybe the game store next door. Um,
Okay.
so we do have like a good mix of different experiences and backgrounds coming in our store, which is really cool. But I'm wondering maybe if you have any advice because you're on a lot of those boards about representation and or volunteering in that aspect. What would I, as a game store owner, or other game store owners, or maybe just like anyone else in the hobby, do to help celebrate like diversity in the hobby?
So, allyship is really huge because you do get some privileges with being a white guy in the nicest way of saying. But what you can do is honestly just creating more of a safe space. Try to find organizations that you can like host in your store. I don't know if you have like tables, but like do a ladies' night like once a month, or an LGBT plus night, or whatever it is, or like celebrate when there is like the coming out day. Like, okay, well, let's find a way to celebrate that and like mark down something or like give out a sticker, whatever it is. But just like, or even putting a pride flag in your window. Like there's just these ways to make a place feel more homey and safe for you as, or for me as a customer, I guess. Like I know when I was living in the Chicago area, I originally, when I first started trying to get into game design, but also just like trying to play games, I showed up to a game meetup, mostly a bunch of middle-aged white guys, very much talked down to me and used like all the terminologies that a newcomer would never know. Like
Mm,
they were using deck building and like 4X and just a bunch of those terms that as a new person, I didn't know that. I mean, I knew what like Sushi Go was at that point, and like Sleeping Queens, like the game right games or whatever.
yeah.
And so like not using those terms to like make someone feel small, but instead explaining like what they are is a good way to do it. Also inviting someone to sit down at the table, asking them what kinds of games do they play, because I found that even before I pitch like an idea of a game that I've made, I tend to ask them what level of knowledge they have. Not in a way to like make them feel small, but for me to find a way to relate to them. Because if they don't like, if their level is Sushi Go, it's like, great. Well, I can explain that like in Sushi Go, you are collecting specific, I guess, sushi, but instead in this, you're collecting the different research tokens. So you can draw
Right.
those parallels. So like finding ways to talk to a person is great. Being approachable, not competitive or compete. Oh my gosh. Repetitively asking if they need help, because when you do that,
Mm,
it kind of makes it seem like they don't know what they're doing. Just offer, hey, when you need help, ask me the question kind of thing versus like just continuing to ask that. Also, when I ended up taking over because I showed up to this game design group so much, I kind of took over as a co-host. As soon as I did that, more women started showing up. So if
mm,
you put people of color or people of different backgrounds or like women kind of at higher front facing positions, even if it's like a loose one, it actually does help bring more of those types of people in. That's why, like, when Elizabeth Hargrave, her game Wingspan came out and like kind of started to blow up, it really motivated more women to get into the space. It
mm.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it really, really helped. And I'm hoping that her story kind of does the same for it. But it's just like having these role model people or role model games, very helpful. Also, just like in your game store, you can have a shelf devoted to like minority game designers. Just like, hey, in case you didn't know, like, here's some cool games made by some people of color, or here's some cool games made by some women. Just like you don't know what you don't know. And so if you can put that in front of people, it's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Really, really great advice. I think we need to do a few more things as far as like merchandising goes and showing off some diverse products that we carry. Uh we just need to put in the effort, I think. I feel like we're a pretty
It's part of
welcoming
it, time
space
and
though.
effort.
Like pretty welcoming. I do like the idea of the pride flag in the window. I think I can even go online and buy like a allyship flag to put on the door too. Yeah,
Please,
cool.
please do. I know that makes me feel like safer and more excited to go into any shop,
Yeah,
but
we do have dice and stuff like that. But it would be nicer to have something on the door, I think. It'd be
yeah,
more
it's the small things to
apparent.
just feel inclusive. But yeah, so just like off the top of my head, those are some different ways to do it. But also like for me, I had a lot of my role models are straight white guys. But what they did is they brought me around convention centers. They like if I pitched to them and my game wasn't for them, they introduced me to someone else. So it's like when you're kind of at that level and you can introduce people to other people, that's another thing you can do to make a change because we
Yeah,
don't know people. Like I didn't know anyone when I first entered, and like you can only be so friendly and push yourself so much to talk to random strangers because sometimes you don't even know who to talk to. So like being that person to do
right.
introductions is a great way to help as well.
Yeah, networking is huge, and that goes for
Oh
just
yeah.
any like business advice is try to make connections, and if you can be the one that connects other people to others, that goes a long way too. I know I've been on the receiving end of a lot of connections, so
Yep.
all right. So before we move into our game, is there anything else that we can share about game design or any like words of advice maybe you want to share to a first time woman game designer or gay designer, anything like that?
Um, I would say just like when you have an idea, prototype it, get in front of people, try to go if you can to any local meetups or there's online ones, which is one of the good things that came out of COVID is a lot of stuff moved online.
Mhm.
Join the different Facebook groups like Board Game Broads Plus. We talk about like any games or any successes, or even if we're having a hard time. So like find your communities, whether it be in person or online, is great. And like as a designer, literally just like playtest, playtest, playtest. Be open to feedback. Don't like fight the playtesters. Just write it down, acknowledge it, thank them for it because you're going to need a lot of playtesters in your life to be a designer and be ready for rejection. Like I always say, I'm a master of rejection. I've had one game rejected 60 times and I am still working in this industry. So it's like just put on a smile and try to pay it forward because, like, you never know when something nice you did is going to make someone's day or some introduction is years later going to lead to a job because, like, I met Charlie Bink, who co-founded Underdog Games back in 2019, and now I'm working for their company. And so it's like, play that long game. But yeah, and if you have free time, like volunteer for one of these amazing organizations. And if you're trying to be a designer, like look into the Tabletop mentorship program. I'm a mentor for it. You get paired up, or honestly, if you're not even a designer, if you're a retailer, if you are someone looking to start a podcast, whatever it is, you can sign up. They do it, I want to say 3 or 4 times a year. And so you sign up, they pair you with a partner, and then you kind of get to work on whatever your goals are. So it's like, that's a really good resource. It's free to you. It's completely run by like volunteers. And so I really love that. But also, if you are a parent or a teacher or a child, there is the Young Inventor Challenge, which happens every year in November. And so at the very end of October, I don't know when this is airing, is when submissions close. But basically, the Young Inventor Challenge is paired with People to Play, which used to be the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. It is hosted in Chicago, but they also do it online, where kids can come up with different concepts for games, create the game, and then pitch it to publishers. And the really cool thing is, basically every year one of these games gets signed. So last year's winner it's like chicken poo bingo. So it's literally the idea that this little mechanical chicken's like pooping on a bingo card. And it came from this kid. I think the kid might be 6 or something, and just like lives in the South. And that's a thing they actually do with their family. And so they turn like an experience from life into a board game, which, like I said, the more diversity we have there, the more we're going to learn about chicken poo bingo and other fun things. But yeah, so it's like, definitely check that out. I highly, highly, highly recommend it, because there's been some kids that won in previous years, and then when they got to college, they ended up like getting internships to work on Survivor or for Spin Master. And so like, had I known about that when I was younger, I would have been in this industry a lot earlier.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's funny too. Kids love poop. There's a little
They
girl
do.
in Daiso the other day, and she wanted to buy a pooping unicorn sticker, and the mom's like, "No,
Yep.
you're not getting a pooping unicorn sticker." That's funny. Cool. Well, let's move into our game. We're gonna play Wavelength. We're gonna try it physically. I wanted to maybe look it up online. I found they have an app, so that's super cool. They have an app now, official app. They do have a desktop slash web version, but my laptop is kind of slow these days, so I'm nervous to try to do both at once. So we're gonna do a physical one. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll kind of explain how it works as we play. But Danielle's played this before, and this will be I've played this a lot of times. So I'm gonna be what am I called? Am I called the host? I don't know. I don't know what it would be
I don't
called.
even, yeah, I don't,
I'm the
whatever you want to call yourself.
clue giver, I suppose.
Mhm.
So I'm going to spin this dial, and the dial just kind of randomizes this target that Danielle is working toward getting. And there'll be a scale. Usually it is some extremes, like hot or cold. We're going to go with exotic pet and normal pet. Oh,
Okay.
I don't know if you can see that. So
Not
normal
really,
pet
but
is on the tan side. Exotic pet is on the orange side. So if you're listening, you have um, to guess whether exotic pet, and I'm going to give a clue. Maybe you could do it if you're listening. You'd be like 100 would be super on this side, which would be, oh, I moved it. Hold on a second. All
oh, jeez.
right. Oh, don't look at it.
Oh, okay, I'm not looking.
I'm gonna spin it again. All right, this is working okay.
Let me know when I
Um,
can look again.
um, okay, you can look again. This is gonna
Okay,
be. I think this might be an easy one. We'll see. So we got normal pet, exotic pet, and I'm
cool.
gonna go with a dog, and then you'll tell me where to move the
I
dial.
feel like it's gotta be like the most towards normal pet, because it's
So
like
this
one
way,
of the most normal pets. Yeah. Yeah,
further.
yeah. Well, little bit more further. I feel like I'm definitely gonna get some level of points. Yeah, sure. Let's stop there.
Cool. So the trick of the game is like there's very small notches that you can move it to, and you might score 4 points or 3 points. And we got, I think that's 3, almost 4 points. Nice,
Damn, I should have gone all the way.
nice.
Bummer.
So that's how
Some people
wavelength
don't like
works.
dogs, so I was like, meh.
Yeah, I don't know what the most normal pet would be. It would be a dog, right? Dog
I
or
feel like
cat.
dog and cat, yeah. Those are like the 2 you think of the most, then maybe like fish. I
The
don't
first
know.
First time I spun it, it was like right in the middle. What would be like a normal / exotic pet?
Maybe like a sugar glider, chinchilla, because like it's not
Chinchilla.
something everyone would have, but it's technically legal to have. I don't know, because spider monkey technically could be a pet, but I also feel like that's pretty exotic. So it's
So
not like in the
that would
middle.
be the furthest
Yeah, I feel
exotic,
like that
right?
would be
Well,
no, not yeah, maybe I guess because you could technically have as a pet.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
but
was thinking so.
technically you could have tigers as basically a pet for some
Yeah,
people.
like tiger. Was it called Tiger King?
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking snake for the middle, because that's
Ugh,
like a
that's
lot
my
of people
number one
have
phobia.
snakes, but yeah.
I can't.
Cool. Well, thank you, Danielle, for coming on the show. And before we go, please let people know where they can find you, where they can learn more, where they can find her story.
Sure. So if you're looking me up online, you can find me under the handle Token Gamer, and that's Gaymer. And that is where I'll be found on Instagram and Twitter. Beyond that, I kind of keep like the designs that I've worked on for various other companies I've worked on or worked with at dmarcreativegroup.com. But if you're looking to buy her story, you can find it on Amazon. You can also find it and all our other amazing games on the Underdog Games website. And all of our social media is some variation of like underdog dot games and other variations of it. So yeah, so check us out, check me out, and hopefully, if you do end up playing the game, you enjoy it. Take some pictures, and if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to me. And you can reach out to me using that like DMR Creative Group contact form.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to have that in the show notes and our blog post with the video and the YouTube description.
Cool.
So thank you, Danielle, for coming on. And I'm excited to get her story. And I have to follow up and see where we're at with getting in it, and hopefully in the next like week or two. But
Oh
cool.
man, I hope you get it soon because it
Yeah.
is gorgeous. Like it is so pretty, and the quality of the components, love.
Yeah, and well, I guess what's cool about Underdog Game as a publisher and as a store owner is we get a demo copy if we order a case. And most publishers do that, but I'm excited. We should be getting a demo
Oh, that's
copy for
cool.
our lending library as well. So
So I actually had no idea that we do that. So this is the first I'm hearing about it. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, I've gotten a demo copy so far with every
Okay,
game I've ordered, because I've
cool.
ordered a case of all the games that you guys carry. I think. I mean, you do trekking through history, trekking through the national parks, coconuts,
Trekking the
trekking
world,
through the
and then we
world, and then
have
her
the 2
story.
trivia games too.
And
So we
then
have
we do
the
have the 2
trivia for the
trivia
world
games
and
too.
the national parks, yes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got it all.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having me.